Uh, let's see. Actually, I'm the first fireman in my family. Most of my family's attorneys and doctors and much smarter than me. I have 7 sisters and 3 brothers. I live on Long Island, born and raised on Long Island. And now, what happened was I was a local 3 electrician, so I worked in the trades in the city. Worked in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and the fire department test came out, and I had just gotten back. From Desert Storm with the Marines. I was in the Marine Corps Reserves at the time. Just got back from Desert Storm with the Marines, and the fire department test came out. I knew nothing about it. I didn't know anything about city firemen or anything like that. But a buddy of mine was a city fireman. I knew he was a fireman, but we never really talked about it because I didn't know anything about it, so it wasn't anything interesting to me. And he suggested I take the test. I took the test, and I took the physical, and then the notice came down to come down to get hired to go into the academy. And at that time, it was like the mid to late 90s. Construction in the city was down, so my trades were laying people off left and right all the time. So I figured, I won't make as much money as a fireman as I would as an electrician, but I'd rather have steady money than only money some of the time. Because my father was a letter carrier, and a lot of all the men in my family are all blue collar. All the women in my family are all white collar. It's just how it is. Women are just smarter than men. So I took the test and went through the academy and loved it, and I wouldn't imagine doing anything else. 1997. I got the hiring notice on my birthday, April 22nd, and then my academy started April 30th. So I got the letter and the phone call on my birthday, so I thought that was a good sign. Typical day. You can't really say there's a typical day. I mean, where I've worked in Queens, I've worked in Brooklyn, and I've worked in Manhattan, and definitely, each borough is different, so it depends on what you're going to do. Where we are here in the city, in Manhattan on 29th Street, I usually get here at like 7:30 in the morning, even though my shift doesn't start until 9, only because I live out on Long Island, and just the commute and stuff is just easier without the traffic. Get here, I'll go pick up some eggs from the store or something, and come back and make breakfast. And we'll have breakfast together in the morning, and our shift starts at 9. And then so at 9 o'clock we have a roll call. It's just basically we go and our boss tells us, or we tell the boss really, what positions we're going to have for the day. I'm in an engine company, so there's an engine chauffeur, there's a nozzleman, a backup man, and a control man. I'm what's considered a seated chauffeur because I'm a senior guy. So that means every time I come to work, more often than not, I'm going to be driving. It's because I know the neighborhood, I know the buildings better because I've been here longer, and that's what I end up doing. So then after that, after we have a roll call, we finish, have a cup of coffee, finish our breakfast up, we clean everything up around 9:30. We do we call committee work. Everything in the firehouse gets cleaned. The whole kitchen, if you look, everything's nice and clean. Kitchen's all clean. Bunk room upstairs gets clean. We do the laundry for the sheets and all that stuff. If any of the beds were used, we mop and clean all the bathrooms, empty all the garbages, that kind of stuff. Like just daily housework that has to be done. So we look at it like the firehouse is our home, our second home. We live here, so we cook here, we eat here, and we work here. And so we have to make sure that we want to keep it clean. We like a tidy firehouse. So, and then throughout the day, it's either we do what's called building inspection. That's 3 days a week, and that's for 4 hours. It's either 4 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the afternoon. And what we do is we go to all the local buildings in our neighborhood, in our response area, and we check for safety violations. That's basically what we're checking. Make sure there's no locked exits that aren't supposed to be locked. Look for housekeeping problems. Look for fire escape problems, like a broken fire escape or something like that. Housekeeping meaning if they keep a lot of garbage in the boiler room, or if they have garbage in the hallway. Like there's things you can't do. You can't store stuff on a fire escape. You can't even put plants out there. You can't keep your bicycle in the hallway. You're not supposed to do that because all that's impeding people from getting out in case there's an emergency. Check the elevators, that kind of stuff. And then and in between that, we go on runs. So any kind of alarms that we get, We're an engine company, so we go on CFR, which are medical runs. So anybody who calls in saying they're sick, heart attack, anything, car accident, any of that stuff, all the electrical alarms here, because all the buildings have alarm systems built into them, so they go off all the time. And then any other, and of course fire emergencies, gas odors, garbage can on fire, that kind of stuff, any of that stuff. And we run around a lot, so I'm pretty sure we're going to break 5,000 runs for this year. That's how much we run. The New York City Fire Department is the busiest fire department, I don't know about the world, but definitely in the country. The second one is like Los Angeles, and we still have like thousands of runs more than they do. It's not close, it's not even close. It's like New York City and then LA would be next, I believe. But yes, we're very busy. So that's a typical day. Well, on September 11th, I was working at Engine Company 302 in South Jamaica, Queens. So we were first due to Kennedy Airport. And basically, I was working that day. We were doing stuff around the kitchen, and the TV was on. And one of the guys was just like, hey, a plane, like they're saying on the news, a plane hit the World Trade Center. So we're looking at it, and it's really hard to get a scale at first of how big it was. And we're all staring at it, trying to figure out, like, was it a Cessna? Was it like a smaller plane? How could this, everybody's grandmother worked at the Empire State Building when a bomber crashed into that by accident because it was transferring in the fog. But this is, in today's day and age, it's really hard to believe that could be an accident. And as we're watching it, the second plane hit. And then after the second plane hit, we were like, we're under attack. And there was nothing for us to do where we were, because we were first due to Kennedy Airport, and they told us we're not going anywhere because we heard that, there's a rumor of another plane in the air and that kind of stuff. So we had to just wait and see. And pretty much we had to go about our day and watch the news. And it was pretty surreal. And definitely when the towers collapsed, when they went straight down, and you're watching this happen, and you know that there are so many firemen in that building at that time. And personally, I was like, anybody, for the most, just everyone's dead. Nobody lived after that. You can't live through that. So amazingly enough, a couple guys did make it out through there, but most didn't. And and you were just chomping at the bit because you wanted to go. You wanted to go there. You wanted to help. We couldn't go because I was on duty. There was a total recall, which means everyone comes in from home. Everybody was off. Everybody came in. Everybody went in to Manhattan, except for the 11 of us that were on tour. So we got stuck. We had to work there that day and that night. I was in my firehouse. And then the first thing in the morning, when we were relieved, then that was our chance to go into the city and help. So funny thing, when the morning of the 12th was when we were able to go, we were thinking, how are we going to get down there? How are we going to be able to get down there? Because all the traffic stopped, nobody's allowed in and out, all that stuff. With that, a New York City Fire Department buildings department pulled up to do some work in our firehouse. So it's an FDNY van with lights on it. The guy got out of his truck with his tool belt, went downstairs into the basement to do some work. We went and dumped all his tools out onto the sidewalk, threw all our gear in it, and took his van. We took his van, we drove it in, because nobody's going to stop us. We had lights, all that kind of stuff. Everybody had ID, and we wanted to get in there now. We took the van, we apologized to him when we got back. He wasn't too happy, but he understood. And so we got in there, and I guess it was the scale of the devastation I wasn't really prepared for when I walked in, when we got up there, because the buildings weren't there anymore. And literally, for the most part, the concrete and pieces of glass and everything, like the biggest pieces I was finding, aside from steel, about the size of a tennis ball. Yeah, and then we just started going through the pile, and that's what they called it. And I think, and then everybody meant well, but firemen aren't USAR trained for the most part, which is urban search and rescue. we're not really, we have units that are trained to do that kind of search, but the basic fireman really doesn't know how to properly search a collapse area, I guess you'd say. And so, not that they were doing anything wrong, but I just remember being at sections and seeing guys like digging, looking for survivors, and they were on the street. They just probably didn't realize their location, and like it was like they were standing on like 3 feet of rubble before they hit the ground. There's nothing under there, no voids there. It's solid mass. For voids, you'd have to go to where the base of the building was. That's where you'd find any possible survivors. So, but just yeah, it was just very heavy duty. And then seeing the guys that I knew, and you go there and there's still fire engines and ladder trucks and stuff that are still on fire. And you show up, and we stretched the line and tried to put out some. I mean, the fire burned there for months before they finally put it out. But and then it was just a painstaking process of just going through the rubble. So yeah, I'd go there every time. If I wasn't working, I'd be there.
Okay.
And it got to the point where the city was like, listen, you can't do that. You can't, because the city wanted to make sure they knew who was there, because they didn't want people getting hurt, because you can get injured there easily. So the city, after, I forgot when they started doing that. They started doing it like they came down with group numbers. Like you can go down then. You can go down at this day, this day, this day. So they stopped us from just going in when we could. And plus you had to work your regular tours and stuff. And then as time went by, you couldn't, you either went down to the trade center or you went to a funeral. Usually what you did was you went to a funeral in the morning, awake in the afternoon. Funeral in the morning, awake in the afternoon, like every day. For a different guy. If you were off, you went to at least something. You had, just out of respect. Mickey Cross is a lieutenant from 16 Engine. 16 Engine, 7 truck responded to that on that 9/11. All the members of 7 truck were killed. 16 Engine didn't lose anybody because only the boss went in to look. He went in to check out to see what was going on, and when he did, the building collapsed, and he survived. He was one of the few survivors. He got trapped in a stairway. Later that day, he got out. Yeah, pretty amazing. It was very shocking the way they came down, and for me, I mean, personally, I love the Trade Center. I love those buildings, and like my favorite buildings were the Trade Center and the Flatiron Building. Those are my favorite buildings in the city. And when I used to work in Brooklyn, what I would do is I'd get off work, and I worked on Mid-Arc Street, right in Brooklyn Heights. So I'd get off work and I'd go for a run. I'd run across the Brooklyn Bridge, around City Hall and back. But as you're running, like especially when the sun's setting and everything like that, and the lights come on, you could really see the Trade Center. And anytime I came into Manhattan when I was a kid, when I was younger, a teenager and that kind of stuff, if I ever was trying to figure out where I would just turn and look, find the Trade Center and go, okay, that's south. All right, so now I can orientate myself. That and I knew a guy who worked for, he was in charge of the antenna on top of the Trade Center. This guy, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Fox. And so I knew a bunch about the building, the way it was constructed, because the way the sides were actually carrying most of the weight. That's why it collapsed that way, because that building was built, the entire outside, if you look at the the striping that goes up the side of the building, that was welded steel from ground to top, all the way up. And then the floors were all hung off of that. And then you had the center elevator shafts. And I think that's why, if it was going to collapse, I didn't think it was going to fall over, because of the way it was constructed, because it was just a big stack of steel. But when the floors started coming, there was too much. That, and I remember the first time it was bombed, I was at Camp Smith with the Marines also, and we thought we were going to go down for that, and they didn't call us for that. I guess what happens is normal people, when they see danger or something like that, they go away from it. Firemen, and that's not our job. That's not what we do. We go where everyone else is leaving. There's something about going into a building when everyone else is leaving. I mean, because we understand, we have a basic concept of what the possible dangers are. Especially, I mean, you come up and we see a building and there's fire blowing out of one of the apartments. We know the building's not going to collapse. It shouldn't. We hope it won't. So we know that we're going to stretch the line. That's what we do. We put out fires. We save people. That's why it's kind of like you don't think about it until you're done. You know, the way it works with me anyway is we get these crazy situations that we end up with, and you have a job to do. This is what you do. So you go, whether it's, you know, climbing underneath a subway car on live tracks, going to a burning building, going to a burning apartment. Yeah, that's what you're doing. That's what you're there for. You do it. You finish your job. You get all done, and then you come out. And then when you're out, you're like, "Holy cow! You know what we just did?" And that's, you know, you worry about it later. And the big thing about it is we use humor for just about to dispel all our stress. It seems a little cold and callous sometimes. If you were a passerby and you heard the things we'd say to each other, you'd be like, "Wow, those guys are messed up." But that's just how we deal with stress. I mean, we're going to stand around and laugh or stand around and cry. Those are your choices. So we choose to laugh. Actually, I was in the Marine Corps Reserves for 13 years, and I've been in the Air National Guard for 14 years. I'm still active in the Air National Guard. In the Marines, I did communications with the Desert Storm. In the Air Force, I am a firefighter in the Air Force. I'm an airport rescue firefighter. And I went to Baghdad in 2004, and I went to Kuwait in 2007. I always wanted to go into the service, and I was going to enlist in the active duty Marine Corps right out of high school, just because I knew, you know, I wasn't a bad kid, but I didn't really have great focus, and I thought I needed a little bit more focus. I was going to go active duty, and my father who was in the Army, who was an Army veteran, my father said, "Listen, join the reserves. Join the reserves, and then, you know, then if you don't like it, at least you only have to do it 1 weekend a month or whatever." And so I went into the reserves, and I loved it. You know, I got a lot out of it. So it was just a, you know, a combination of I needed focus. I've always wanted to do something, help, you know, towards our country and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's why I enlisted, and just because I want to do my part for my country. I'm an Eagle Scout too. I'm an Eagle Scout. My 4 brothers are Eagle Scouts. We have like this whole thing beaten into our heads about community service and that kind of stuff, and doing for others. Very important in my family anyway. And with the firefighting in the military, it's been great. I get to go on, you know, I've gotten to go on these deployments and serve over during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. And, you know, and that was a challenge. I mean, because even though they bring, you know, because we're there to help and we help everybody, and they bring, you know, the quote-unquote bad guys, when what happened was a prison got attacked, and they brought the prisoners back. So they were prisoners of war. They were foreign combatants, they should call them. But, you know, but we did everything we could to help them, because they're still people. You know, it doesn't matter your ideology. It's not. That's just the way you were told, or the way you were raised, or the way you were brought, and the way you think. It's not. You know, it's still come down to it. Still people. That's why we don't see, like you see, firemen will help anybody. We're not here to judge on who's a good person, who's a bad people. We just know they're people, and you know, we let the law handle that part. But yeah, like we help. I've never seen a fireman, and I would never change my response or not help somebody because of who they are. In Baghdad and Kuwait, I was a fireman. So we were I was in BIAP. It used to be Saddam Hussein Airport, and they changed it to BIAP, which is Baghdad International Airport. That's what it stands for. And yeah, that was interesting because the locals didn't, you know, obviously weren't happy that Americans were there at all, so they'd rocket us all the time. It's what they do is they would take PVC tubes and they'd take timers off of dryers, wash machines, or microwaves. We call them set it and forget it rockets. So they'd go at night and they'd bury all these rockets, and they'd use Kentucky windage, which means they kind of like basically like, well, if I aim it this way, maybe it'll hit over there. But they would set up like 15 or 20 of them in these PVC tubes with these timers on them, and then the timer would go off at like, you know, 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that, and all of a sudden these, you know, boom, boom, boom. There wouldn't be anybody firing. There wouldn't be anybody there. And all those rockets would start hitting the flight line, or they start hitting the side of the firehouses. So that was always interesting. But it was still, it was. I was glad we went. I was glad to be there. Glad to help. I'd have to say not really, because I've always been, I've been in the military longer than I've done anything else in my life. I've been in almost 27 years, I guess. I was always part of the service, so there's always bad guys somewhere, I guess you'd say. I mean, because when I started, I was, we were considered Cold War Marines. We were assuming we were just going to go to war with Russia. I guess maybe younger people worry about, oh no, they're going to blow up a building. Oh no, they're going to blow up the subway. I mean, when we were younger, we were like, oh no, they're going to blow up the planet.
Right.
That's what we were worried about. They were going to wipe out the planet with nuclear bombs between the Soviets and us. That's what I grew up with. I used to always carry disposable paper cameras. I used to always carry one in my pocket for fires and
Right.
stuff to take it out to a quick picture or whatever. And I remember I had it, and I reached in my pocket, and I pulled it out, and one of my friends was like, you got to start taking some pictures. I said, no, I can't take pictures here. He goes, you got to document this. This is history.